has a place right across town whenever you're ready. Well, people gather round whenever they're ready, and then the music begins to play. Feel the blues coming on its way. Are you ready? Are you ready? You get yours, 'cause I got mine for the monkey time.
Good morning. It is Thursday, my favorite day of the week. In the studio we have Loy Hardcastle. This is the Real Estate Roundtable. Lloyd, who do we have with us? This strange looking man.
Well, we have a guy here that I actually can honestly say, I wish you weren't here. We have Darrell Williams as our guest lead-in man and taking care of business here in place of Mr. Tom Lawrence, who I think is doing well. I mean,
yes.
I haven't talked to him, Darrell. You have, but
just briefly, Loy, and we got a good report on Tom. He actually went home with friends this week, and they are helping Tom because I'm sure that's a lot to deal with. Tom said, you know, no one wants to go through this, but you know, we all agree, Tom. You know, we're glad that you're on top of this.
you know, last week we were. With Thanksgiving on Thursday, we were pre-taping, I hate to say that, the show, and Tom was saying, well, you know, I'm going in for a little procedure, and I've had a little shortness of breath and blah, 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 and I said, well, Tom, that's great. I mean, it's good news that you're going in to check out and see what's wrong, and I mean, the next day, here this big little procedure turns into a big procedure. And but he's certainly in good hands, it sounds like, and everything is coming along nicely. And, you know, believe it or not, it's a well-deserved rest, but it's a heck of a way to get a rest. I mean, Tom is one of those guys, even in retirement, he's as busy as he was before he said he was retiring. So, anyway, if you're listening, Tom, I wish you were here, but take care of yourself and get back in here quickly, get well.
I know Tom will be on the fast track to recovery. Loy, like you, he's one of the hardest working guys I know.
Hardest working guy in show business, next to James Brown.
That's right.
James not working anymore, so you know, then Tom can take his place. Anyway, we have, I know, somebody called in just a minute ago with a birthday. I think we've got some of those, haven't we, Ronnie?
Yeah, we've got a couple birthdays here. Happy birthday to Katie Jackson. Sharon Mouth. It says from your husband,
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah, Moth.
Moth, okay,
Yes.
Moth.
And they had an anniversary recently too, because I spoke with Jim. Jim has worked with law enforcement. He's a gun guy, you know.
Have you ever been to
he
his
knows all.
house? I think he's got a shooting range in the basement. I'm serious. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got some kind of thing set up down there, and I believe it's.
He's an expert marksman, I think.
And
Yeah.
I think teaches gun control and that sort of stuff. I know he's worked with the Williams County
Yeah.
Sheriff's Department in training and that sort of stuff
Yes.
for quite some time.
And he was really just, you know, giving the accolades to his wife. Is it Sharon? He says she's put up with him all these years, and she's just a wonderful lady.
63 years, it says.
63, yeah. And today's her birthday, Ronnie?
Today's her birthday.
And two of my cousins are in the club today. Do you see cousins there in the club?
Yeah, Lynn McNeely
Yes.
and Terry Duvall.
They are my cousins, and somehow they have birthdays on the same day.
And do they claim you? Now, you're claiming
They-
them.
they-
but will they say that you're their cousin?
I'm not sure about that, but
careful.
double trouble in the birthday club.
You're out on the airwaves. So it's going to be permanent. Is that it?
And then the last one currently is Dick Stockstill. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, yeah. Dick Stockstill, great guy. Great guy. Married to Jillian.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I have a couple, and I think everybody's going to know these people right here. Ferlin Husky, born on this day in 1925, and good singer, country music entertainer.
Is he Wings of a Dove man? I'm putting him with that famous song "Wings of a Dove," but I may be wrong.
You
Have to fact check me after the show.
You probably know that sooner than I
I
will.
I won't cheat and Google.
Okay, all right.
Anyway.
Not right now. And now here's a guy you know too, great singer, Andy Williams was born. And you know, he's got several Christmas songs which are appropriate to play this
Yes.
time of year, but great voice. Andy Williams, a great entertainer, born on this day in 1927,
I think he's related to me.
probably.
A
I
good
think you're
singer,
related
his
to
last
him.
name Williams?
Yeah, yeah.
Probably not related to
Maybe he's
me.
your second cousin.
Maybe so, yeah.
You need to check that out. Bobby Allison, the great race car driver, born on this day in 1937. And here's a young lady I remember, and the only movie I remember that this woman made was Mermaid, and that's Darrell Hannah. And I think I know why I remember that movie. But at any rate, it was
My other
made-
brother Darrell,
in
my
19
other sister Darrell.
1960, Darrell was born on this day in 1960. And here's an interesting note. On this day in 1965, the guitar player for the Rolling Stones, Keith Richards, his guitar came in contact with the mic stand and it shocked him and it knocked him out on stage. Now, I don't know whether that was really the cause
Or did it serve as a defibrillator?
and I don't, could have been, but you know, I know that, he knows that, microphones can really shock you when you get your lips up against a microphone and maybe there's moisture in the air and so forth and so on. And it's worse when you're playing outside in the grass. And I don't know whether Ronnie's ever done that or not, but you're playing in the grass and the grass might be damp at night and you've got this electric microphone and your lips touch this little metal thing. It can shock the heck out of you, let me tell you. Have you ever done that?
It gives a new meaning to pop filter.
Well, that's why a lot of these mics have the little screen, because that's a wind screen too, but it also protects. I know that we've wrapped handkerchiefs around the microphones before and put a rubber band when we didn't have something like that, just to keep your mouth from coming in contact with the microphone, because it'll shock you.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, and this was Keith Richards you referenced on the, I always watch YouTube and some of the Beatles archive stuff, you know, it's all over YouTube. And I was watching one kind of Beatles flubs, you know, those rare moments when they were performing. Of course, you could never hear anything anyway.
Right, true.
But I was thinking, Loy, watching, you know, the wires and stuff that's so different, I thought, you know, it's a wonder they didn't have an accident on stage with the electricity. And it's kind of funny you
I've
mentioned
thought about that over the years, and I've been doing this for a long, long time. We have gotten little shocks like your mouth touching the microphone, and occasionally you might reach over if things are really moist and you're outside particularly and there's been a little rain or something, and touch a mic, I mean not a mic, but an amplifier to change a switch, a ground switch or something, and it'll give you a shock. But I'm like you see cords and things running around everywhere, and it's a miracle that people just don't get electrocuted all the time with stuff like that.
Yeah, because you hear these freaky things.
Well, they're
from
well
time to time.
insulated, these cords are
Yeah.
well insulated, and of course, it's not, in some cases, not high voltage running through them, and it's like a microphone. It sort of feels like if you've ever stuck a tongue, not many people have done this, to a 9-volt battery to test it out, it'll give you a real little spark there if you do that. So if you hadn't done that, folks, don't do it. It'll wake you up.
Is there another way to know if it's any good?
No, that's the only way you can tell.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, and then the Monkees, not the real live in the zoo, but the band, the Monkees, performed for the first time live on this day in 1966 in Honolulu, of all places.
But did they really perform?
You know, that's a good question. It was probably lip syncing extraordinaire. They were, as you know, put together to perform, and I think they really did do some live work. And we're assuming that this is accurate. I did not investigate, but we're assuming this is accurate. Now, I know this one is accurate because I saw this one. Elvis performed on NBC, that live Elvis concert, that sort of comeback concert on this day in 1968.
Is that the one where he's dressed in black leather?
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right. Now, there was another one, huge, and I think it was at that time, the most widely viewed live broadcast in history when he was in Hawaii. Aloha, I think, was the name of that particular concert. And I think it was Elvis Aloha from Hawaii or whatever. And it was performed, as I said, live, and I forget how many millions of people saw that. It was a satellite deal, obviously, and that was early on in the satellite performances, I guess. But at any rate, at that time, it was the largest viewed performance of anybody or any television show. And I have to make a little side note. One of our band members that played in the Exotics back in those days played in that band in Hawaii. Terry Williams was our trombone player and a great musician in Nashville. And Terry was in part of the group that went, since a lot of them were from the Nashville area. Ronnie Tutt was his drummer, and Ronnie lives here in Franklin and still plays. And I think Ronnie's in his 80s, so he's very inspirational to me. But at any rate, Ronnie certainly went out there, and Terry and a lot of other guys from Nashville to be in that band.
We were really lucky to experience these things in real time, because it's really hard for someone who wasn't a part of that era, too young to know that. I mean, those things were just so groundbreaking.
They were, and like I mentioned a minute ago, satellite. I mean, you know, who could have ever dreamed that? But look at our cell phones. I mean, all this stuff that just happens instantaneously. You can talk to somebody across the world, and there might be a second lag, maybe a second and a half. I mean, it's just amazing how far we've come. But you're right, that was really interesting stuff in its day, because I was more interested in the entertainment factor rather than how did that happen, you know. But very, very interesting stuff. And thank goodness, as you mentioned, we have YouTube and, you know, ways of going back and look at some of those things, archives of all sorts that have chronicled those things and kept them alive, so to speak. And yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Pretty interesting stuff. I want to move along with a couple things here. Now, we're always cautious with this, and that is mentioning people that have passed away, because there's so many great people that live in our community and have lived in our community and contributed in so many ways over the years. But we just have to mention Pearl Bransford, great lady here in Franklin, and certainly a community worker, and somebody that spent a lot of time promoting Franklin and Franklin citizens and all sorts of causes and things here in Franklin and Williamson County. Unexpectedly passed away just within the last few days, and so we're sorry for that, and extend our sympathy to Pearl and her family. And then a great friend of mine whom I've known for many, many years, a gentleman by the name of Harvey Matthews, great guy. And Harvey, I've known Harvey so long that he was one of our customers when we were on Main Street back in the 70s. And I was talking to the family one day this week, and I remember that Harvey bought a brand new Dodge, what we call a Ram Charger, sort of a early utility vehicle, and it had a rattle somewhere in the front, and we couldn't find it. And he'd say, well, it's there, you know, that we couldn't hear it sometimes. So one day we just thought, well, let's just see, because he kept saying it's over there. He kept pointing somewhere around the windshield. And I remember getting a blanket of sorts and putting it on the hood of this truck, and getting at it and laying it on the hood outside now of the truck. And we drove around downtown Franklin, and I'm holding on to the hood of this truck. And sure enough, I heard this rattle, and it was coming from the windshield wiper area outside the cab of the truck. So we had to take what's called a cowling off and we had to cut it off. And there was a piece of metal that had somehow, I guess, at the factory fallen down in there, and it was just laying around loose. But we got it fixed. But I was riding around on the hood of his truck trying to find that rattle. But he was right, and we found that rattle. But I asked him one day what he did at Vanderbilt. He was in their maintenance department, and he was in charge of fire extinguishers. And I said, what in the world kind of job is that? And he looked at me like I'd lost my mind. And I never thought about it. But think about how many fire extinguishers must be on the Vanderbilt campus. I mean, how many thousands, I suppose. And he was talking, he had to make sure they were charged, obviously. And then he said, well, these kids over the weekend, and, you know, they shoot those things off in fraternity parties and in the dorms and all sorts of stuff. So it was a full-time job, just making sure that the fire extinguishers were up to grade and ready to go. And that's something that you just never think about. But anyway, that was it was a job. And Harvey, a great guy, and passed away. And then on a positive note here, Jimmy Gentry's 95th birthday was just celebrated this week. And congratulations to Coach Gentry. And there are always accolades in the paper, or anytime you hear anything about Coach Gentry, people are you know, they have stories to tell. I'm not going to tell a story, but I will say that, and I thought about it this morning, the comments that were made that were in the paper, in the Herald this morning, that I had Coach Gentry as a coach and as a teacher in high school at when I was at BGA. And if you've had Coach Gentry, that's where all these interesting memories and his way of thinking, his way of life, just doing the right thing and so forth, that's where you pick this up. You can read about it all day long, and you can hear people say certain things, but all of the thousands of people that he has taught over the years and whose lives he's touched understand what Coach Gentry is all about. And I just want to say that I am certainly thankful that I had him in class and in school. And you talk about a disciplinarian. If Coach Gentry told you to do something, don't ask any questions. Don't ask why. Don't ask it. Just do it and go on about your business. So anyway, Coach Gentry's a great guy, and they talked about now beginning to celebrate his 100th birthday, which is only 5 years away. And he looks extremely very healthy. So I would expect we'll be celebrating his 100th birthday at some point in time.
Wasn't there a documentary of?
Yes.
I think it was
about his life. Yes.
An American Story, maybe.
Yeah.
And boy, that's
Right.
the perfect title,
Right.
because his is that.
Well, in the book, I read the book, and I don't read books much, I'll tell you, but you sit down and you start to read a book like that, especially if you know Coach Gentry, it's one of those books that's almost impossible to put down. You know so many events, you know so many people that are in the book and various things. So very interesting book, yes, and documentary, and just a great guy. So happy birthday to Coach Gentry.
Well, you know, Loy, people like Coach Gentry that we would kind of put on Mount Rushmore here in Williamson County. You know, another one of those I want to send well wishes to is Joyce Smith.
Sure.
Folks know Joyce from
Absolutely.
Community News Reporting and the Story Bus. I've seen on Facebook through her daughter Leanne, and I think Leanne is in quarantine now, and she said that Joyce has not been well. So, you know, I saw just lots of comments and well wishes and prayers for Joyce.
Sure.
So for that whole family, you know, we join that, and hope they're back and out of quarantine soon.
Absolutely, and Joyce, you know, with her column, for example, in the paper, is always talking about people that need your thoughts and prayers and things like that. Never talks about herself. So I'm glad you brought that up. I did not know that.
She is a longtime breast cancer survivor.
Well, good for her.
So
I didn't know
wish
that.
Joyce the best. Hope to see her soon.
I know this is a real estate program, but sometimes real estate can be boring, so I'll get to a couple of real estate things in a minute, but I've got things I want to mention. Don't forget, we just went past the 156th anniversary of the Battle of Franklin, November 30 of 1864. And I mean, I know we've talked about that many times, but we don't want to forget certain huge events in the history of our country. And that Battle of Franklin was certainly one of those things to be remembered, and obviously right here in our back door, and we were probably sitting right in the middle of a lot of that battle. And then Franklin Fire Department, this is important right here. Toy Drive, this is their 13th annual toy drive, and so they're looking for toy donations, and I believe that you go into you can if you want to, but you can certainly bring the toys. Go in and get a name off the tree down in the City Hall building, and then get a toy for that particular child and bring it back. And but whether you do that or not, just bring a toy and take it down there to the fire department. I mean, you don't let them pick out a name or something. Just get a toy and take it down there. great thing for this time of the year for children that might not be as well off as some, and they'll be handing out those toys, I suppose, right before Christmas. So good, good deal, and kudos to the Franklin Fire Department. I noticed an interesting article in the newspaper this morning about how to turn down an invitation to a party during this time, which is the COVID, is all based around your response, and there probably obviously aren't as many parties this year for obvious reasons, and how to politely turn them down. Well, I don't know that you have to be too polite about it. You say, I'm not coming.
I don't want to get sick.
I don't want to get sick, I've made it this far, assuming you have, I've made it this far, and I really appreciate the invitation, but I'm just not going to do it. And but it gave you a whole list of things to say, boy, shippity cricket. I just say no. What could be easier about that? And then, of course, we're getting closer and closer to a vaccine. And I also read in the paper this morning that Britain, within a matter of a few days, are going to start using the vaccine. So if Great Britain is going to start that, then we're going to be really, really close.
I saw something from a medical expert, and he said, people need to know that the vaccine, and I don't know, exactly which vaccine and how it would deliver it, a series or one-time deal, but they said I think they said a lot of people or some people, it will not be a walk in the park. That
there will be side effects, I believe, is what you're talking about.
Right. And again, that was one
expert. It would probably beat the alternative, though.
I think so.
So yeah. I would go for it. I know that I will be able to. I will take it as soon as I can get it. And I'm on that upper list now because they're frontline workers, healthcare workers, and so forth get it first, I believe, and then prisoners, I think, get it second or something like that. Seriously. And then people 70 and older get it, and I'm right there, so I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to get it pretty soon. And I'll go with the side effect if I'm going to be nauseous for a few hours or something. Hey, at least that hopefully will work out. And the studies are indicating anywhere from 90% plus effectiveness. So hopefully that'll really slow this thing down.
That is very encouraging.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like you. I think I would be one of the first in line.
Oh, heck yeah. I definitely will be. And then moving on to a couple other really neat things, I think, and that is congratulations to the Titans. I know in years past we've seen them implode, but they really seem to be playing good football. They had a great victory this past weekend, and they're really playing well. And they seem to be enjoying themselves. It's always fun when you're winning at anything, no matter what kind of sport, or whether you're number one in whatever you do. That's always a great time. And they really look like they're enjoying themselves. And it looks like they're beginning to understand what they're doing. I don't mean that in a goofy way, but I mean when you figure things out sometimes, no matter whether it's here in the studio, whatever you do, you go, oh, I got it. Let's do more of this, and they really look like they're enjoying themselves and playing very, very good football. So congratulations to the Titans and their victory over the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, they just had their way with them, didn't they?
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
I watched the game and
yeah.
I was expecting the Colts to come back, and whip them. But I'm telling you, the Titans just kept laying it on, and they really looked like they're having a great time.
And I forget their opponent this week. But
I don't
but
know.
I know it said that both are highly rated in some certain. One was one in one category and one was two in another. So
Well,
I guess they have another test.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it next week. And then finally, Vanderbilt changed coaches. They finally moved Mr. Mason along. Nice guy. I met Coach Mason. Nice fella, but just didn't seem to have the effectiveness that they need. And I think the alumni had their input, so to speak, with withholding funds. I'll start to donate maybe when you start to produce, and so forth. So anyway, the pressure just got to Vanderbilt and they had to make that decision. And so good luck to the next coach. Hopefully the next coach will come in and do a good job, but time will tell. Time will tell. Moving on to real estate. Not that anybody, now don't turn the radio off just because we're moving into real estate, but we had fewer sales, which normally we're talking about how many sales we've had. We had fewer sales in November because there's just very little inventory. Now, you say fewer, we did sell 467 homes, and they sell us a lot, but it's well below the 500 and 600 that we're normally selling because, again, the lack of inventory. I looked yesterday afternoon, and I think there were 460 some odd houses available in Williamson County that are not under contract. And a lot of those are to be built. There aren't any pictures of the house. There's a drawing, or maybe even just a picture of a blueprint, and the house is under construction and set to be finished in June of 21 and or October 21. So nowhere close, you know. And perfect example of this, I met with a couple yesterday afternoon in the office, and they want to sell their home and they want to move into whatever. And I said, great, have you figured out maybe what direction, what area of town you want to be in, they want to stay in Williamson County? Well, they said, yeah, what about so-and-so? And I'm not going to mention these names because I don't want to discourage anybody. I said, well, sure. And we're sitting there in front of the screen, and I put in that development, 0 for sale in the development. And he looked at me and said, are you sure? I said, well, now there are some under contract. And I went to that section of the screen, and there were 7 or 8 that were under contract, but none available, none active. That's the key. How many are active? And he said, well, goodness gracious, what about, well, then that one nearby is so-so, and so I looked that up, none in that development. I'm talking some pretty good sized developments here. And so they all of a sudden realized, because I've been telling them that before you put your house on the market, because their house will sell, it's going to be in a price range that there will be a serious bidding war on their house, that they got to know where they're going to go. Because if you sell your house, if you put your house on the market today, and you get a contract today or tomorrow that's accepted, which is entirely possible, that's probably what's going to happen. You're going to say, well, now, wait a minute, I haven't bought anything yet. I said, well, Darrell, where are you going? Well, I don't know. I thought about going to, well, let's look. Well, there's nothing in there for sale. And you're talking about Panic City, you're going to say, well, what am I going to do? So the whole process, the easiest part now is selling your home. That's the easy part. The hard part is finding something that you want, and you have to be prepared to, when you write an offer, say, well, I've got either the cash to buy this one, or I've got the financing lined up to close on the new house I'm buying while I'm still trying to sell mine and close mine. So it's a tricky situation. We can lead you through that, and we can put you into a position where you can write an offer that says it's not contingent on my house selling. We can help you with all of that. But that's the biggest drawback that I see today in real estate, lack of inventory, which is driving all of this other odd stuff, bidding wars and all this sort of stuff. But we can help you, and it's kind of frightening. It's fun, but it's still pretty scary. But we can help you with all that and make it a whole lot easier for you. So I'll get back to the same old closing argument here. If you need any help in real estate, if you want to talk about buying or selling, give me a call, Loy Hardcastle at Bob Parks Realty, 615-790-7400, and we can talk about it. We can make a plan, and we can talk, but you got to be ready when you're starting to think about it today because of, again, lack of inventory and people moving in. But anyway, have a great day, have a great weekend, everybody, and we will be talking to you next week. And Darrell, thank you for coming in.
Loy, thank you.